Welcome back into Eye on Agriculture. I'm Britton Rucker. As House Republicans unveil what they're calling Farm Bill 2.0, the debate over food policy, farm programs, and natural security is heating up in Washington. To help break this down and what's in the bill and what it can mean for farmers here at home, we're joined now with Roger McEowen, professor of Agricultural Law and Taxation at Washburn University. Roger, what is Farm Bill 2.0 and how is it different than past farm bills?
Well, this builds on what was already passed as part of the Farm Bill in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was signed into law on July 4 by President Trump. And that one really strengthened the farm safety net. So a lot of our traditional commodity programs, our reference prices, our loan rates, crop insurance, those types of things, that's already been dealt with. And farmers will see a dramatic increase in their ARC and PLC payments come October of 2026 as a result of that legislation and what it did to increase and enhance the safety net. Procedurally, there are things in a farm bill that cannot be passed in a reconciliation bill, which is what the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was a part of. That was a big reconciliation package, and it has to do with procedural rules in the Congress. And so what you're seeing now are things such as extension funding, forestry, conservation funding, SNAP, the old food stamp program, which is SNAP. That's now in this so-called skinny farm bill, although it's 802 pages long. So if this is a skinny farm bill, I hate to see what a fat one is. But it has 12 titles to it. So it's massive, but it's dealing with things that they couldn't address in a reconciliation bill.
Now, a lot of producers are wondering where in the world does crop insurance fit into that? Now, why did lawmakers split off crop insurance and safety net funding last year, and kind of what's left now?
Well, again, that goes back to this bird rule, this procedural rule that's in the Congress. And crop insurance was dealt with in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the commodity title. And we saw significant enhancements to it. You can now have ARC County with your crop insurance, so you kind of double stack that. You're not just limited to PLC. And it extended, increased the subsidy for beginning farmers and extended the time frame from 5 to 10 years for which somebody can be determined to be a beginning farmer. So there were a lot of crop insurance changes that were already made. And this bill is just building on that structure that was put in as a result of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act provisions.
Now, you mentioned SNAP is kind of rolled into this. How could the proposed SNAP changes impact rural families and grocery stores?
Well, this builds on waivers that have already been granted to 12 states to formalize restrictions on using SNAP benefits for unhealthy items such as pop, or soda and highly processed snacks. And it also reinforces the expanded work requirements that were passed in the commodity title of OBA that requires able-bodied adults up to age 64 to engage in 80 hours of work or training or volunteering per month to maintain benefits. And I think most people would view those as pretty reasonable requirements. They're trying to deal with fraud issues by putting those work requirements in. And again, it's not just work. It could be training. It could be volunteerism. So I think those are all good things. There may be some snags on the Senate side that would object to that, and it's going to be close one way or the other. But that was in the House version that G.T. Thompson has now released.
Now, Roger, we have talked in depth here on the program about Prop 12 in the past. What is that for people that's A, unfamiliar, and B, where does that stand?
Well, a number of years ago, California passed a bill, and it became known as Proposition 12, and that says that if you're going to sell, let's say, pork products in the state of California, then you have to have raised those animals in conditions that California approves of, even if you're not in California. So basically, it's California dictating agricultural practices to pork producers, for example, in Iowa. Now, I'm picking on pork. It's broader than just pork. But that raised a question that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think because of the way the case was positioned and the way it was argued, the pork industry lost that case. And the Supreme Court said that California could do what they were doing. But what it is doing is mandating specific living conditions for livestock if their meat is to be sold in the state. And so the House bill now has language in it that states that says that states cannot require production standards for products that were produced outside the borders of that particular state. So it's a battle from a legal standpoint. It's a battle over the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, specifically whether one state can dictate how a farmer not located in California, in this instance, can raise pigs. I would add, Britton, that this was an issue that Representative Steve King from Iowa had gotten into the 2014 Farm Bill that passed the House, and it was stripped out by the Senate. Had the Senate taken this in 2014, California would not have been able to do what they've done. We never would have had a Supreme Court case, and we wouldn't be talking about this here 12 years later in 2026.
Yeah, lots of producers here at home nervous about that Prop 12. Now, does this bill strengthen or weaken states' rights when it comes to livestock rules?
Well, it says that one state cannot basically cannibalize another state. You can't. The voters in Iowa have dictated how their production standards should be. Those shouldn't be overridden by voters in California. And so it's respecting state rights, I think, is the proper way to look at it, and barring one state from basically overriding the voters in another state in terms of agricultural practices. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get this through, and if so, we'll probably have another challenge that could go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court again.
Roger, another topic closely watched is the ownership of ownership of U.S. farmland, I should say. What does the bill say about anything in that?
Well, that's right. It does address this issue. It increases the reporting requirements for foreign entities that buy U.S. agricultural land, and it adds the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture as a permanent member of the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. So it does two things. It probably could have more teeth in it, but that's where it came out of the House at.
Now, Roger, realistically, what are the chances that this 800-page draft becomes law as written?
Well, I think I'm one of many that expect this document to not become law in its current form. It's 802 pages. It's basically the House is at the starting line, if we want to think of a race, and you're going to have a vote-a-rama on provisions starting the 23rd of February, and I think that'll go all the way through. It's going to be a vote marathon all the way to the time of the President's State of the Union address on the evening of the 24th. And it's dragging the Senate to that starting line. And that's usually the way things go on this type of legislation. The House leads and the Senate is a reluctant participant. But the Senate wants to pass a bill. And so they're going to, the House is wanting a bunch of provisions in there. The Senate wants to pass a bill, which means to me there's going to have to be compromises, and the bill in its current form is probably not going to be the final version.
Something to watch. Roger, as always, thanks so much for coming on. Everyone, stick around, and Agriculture will be back after the break.